Guys, it's going to be a great episode today with Cody Nelson of the Outdoorsmans in Phoenix. And I wanted to remind you guys that Cody is offering, the Outdoorsmans is offering 10% off on all Outdoorsmans products if you call up and use the J Scott Outdoors promo code. Also, I want to thank our two sponsors. I want to thank GoHunt.com Insider. They've been our title sponsor since the beginning of this podcast. And this month, the Go Hunt Insider is giving away 5 Zeiss binoculars. They're actually 5 Zeiss Conquest 10 by 42 binoculars with the total value of $4,500. All you have to do is be a Insider member to be eligible for the drawing. All current Insider members are automatically entered. There's only one entry per person per Insider member. And you must join the Insider by midnight of December 31st, 2015 Pacific Standard Time. And on January 1st, they're going to draw, like they do every month at the beginning of the month, 5 winners and 5 alternates. And you have 3 days to claim your prize. Now, keep in mind, GoHunt.com Insider has given away mule deer hunts. They've given away a Coues deer hunt, 2 spots, a Coues deer hunt in Sonora, Mexico. That was the October giveaway. The Coues deer hunt was scheduled here with Jar Colburn and myself for the rut in this January 2016. They've given away Doll sheep hunts. They've given away Coues sleeping bags, 10 Coues backpacks, all kinds of gear, some rifles. So all Go Hunt Insider members have a chance to win. If you're not a Go Hunt Insider member, click on the blue Join Now button when you go to gohunt.com/insider. Use the J Scott promo code when you're signing up, and GoHunt.com will automatically send you a $50 Coues gift card. As you know, Dar and I have been using Coues gear from the beginning, and we firmly believe that Coues is the best ultralight hunting gear out there, and we use all of their gear and have for many years. So go sign up for the Go Hunt Insider. You can check out their new Filtering 2.0, which is an awesome resource. You can actually search by state, by species, by unit, and check out all the different harvest statistics. And any day now, they're also going to be launching the draw odds portion of the Filtering 2.0 just in time for application season here across the West. And from everything that I've been shown and told, it's going to be the most sophisticated draw odds program that's available on the market. And so it will be even more of a great resource to be able to decide where you want to hunt, which units, which animals, etc. across the West. I want to thank GoHunt.com Insider for their sponsorship of this podcast. Also, like to thank DeadeyeOutfitters.com. They make quality T-shirts and hats. They are hunters and they make all this gear with hunters in mind. Go check them out at DeadeyeOutfitters.com. They have an unbelievable a bunch of new products coming out. I've been privy to see some of the new products coming out here in 2016, and it's going to be some awesome stuff. Use the J Scott promo code and automatically receive a 10% discount. But they are also running a holiday special, 25% off on all merchandise. So use the J Scott promo code and go check out DeadeyeOutfitters.com. Guys, this is going to be a great episode with Cody. We're going to talk about optics. We're going to talk about December Coues deer hunting. We're going to talk about Cody's strip hunt that he just got off of, and it's always great having him. Don't forget, 10% off on all Outdoorsmans products. Give them a call. You can follow them on the web at outdoorsmans.com. you can also give them a ring at 1-800-291-8065. If you're local, you can call at 602-944-7121. Guys, thanks for all of your attention and all of your comments. Thank you for all your support of my podcast. If you'd like to send me a message, you can reach me at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. I love hearing from listeners. I get emails every day. If you haven't, please subscribe. You'll automatically get every episode when it's downloaded. And also send me an email if you guys are listening either through iTunes or through Podbean or Stitcher. I kind of want to know where you guys listen to this podcast. And we are very, very close here to 1 million downloads. I started this podcast at the end of February of 2015 last year, and I'm thinking that we're going to easily eclipse the 1 million downloads by the time this podcast is 1 year old. That anniversary is coming up here in 60 days or so. So, guys, there's a few guys left out there hunting sheep in Arizona. The December Coues deer hunts have all kicked off, and guys are out doing a bunch of archery deer hunting. We've obviously got January coming up where most of the units across Arizona are going to be wide open for archery deer, and a bunch of us are going to be headed to Mexico, Coues deer hunting and mule deer hunting down in Sonora. So, guys, I want to just real quick, I was watching, as I often do, a TV show on ESPN E60, and it was about this little girl, and I want to say it was like Minnesota or Michigan or somewhere, and she has MS, and she's a cross-country runner, and she would run these races in high school, and at the end of the race, literally her coach would have to catch her right at the finish line, or else she'd just fall flat on her face. And she did this all 4 years in high school, and she ended up being a state champion. She won all three. She won the inside, I think it was the 3,200 meter. She won the cross country, and she won another event. And man, what an unbelievable story that was. And it just made me think about there's a lot of people that are less fortunate than we are, and than I am. And certainly when it comes to your health, you never know when you're going to face challenges. And this was just an inspiring story. Almost brought me to tears sitting in my chair on a Saturday morning, just watching the grit and determination from this girl. And I just wanted to encourage you guys out there, if you're going through some hardships, to look at the light at the end of the tunnel and know that most of the time pain is temporary. And in this little girl's case, obviously she's got something much more than something temporary. But what a story of grit and determination, and I just thought I would share that with you. I'm sure some of you have seen that episode, and it just goes to show that when you put your mind to it, and you decide to be tough about something, and that you can persevere through most anything. So I just want to encourage you guys this time of our holiday season, and I just want to thank you guys for listening to this podcast. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have Cody Nelson from the Outdoorsmans in Phoenix. And last time we talked to Cody, he was getting ready to go on his Arizona strip hunt. Cody, how you doing?
I'm doing good, bud. Thanks for having me today, Jay.
Yeah, absolutely. Last time we talked to you on the podcast, you were preparing to go up to 13B on the Arizona strip and hunt mule deer. And how'd that go for you, buddy?
You know what, bud? I actually I did good. I killed a buck on the 8th day, and it was a big old 5x7, about 29 inches wide, and the strip certainly taught me a few lessons. I prepared for it, and I'm glad I did, because all the advice and everything that the people that I have the fortune to talk to man, if I hadn't had the amount of fuel and the supplies and the mental fortitude to stay after it, we had 6 inches of snow, we had mud, we had rain, we had just about everything that the Strip could throw at you. So I broke a shock mount on my truck. It just everything that I think that they wanted to test me on, they tested me. And but we had a great hunt, and I could not be happier.
You know, it's an amazing place. It's hard to grasp the vastness of it and how big it is. But once you get up there, you kind of realize how small we really are and how big that country is. And
it is enormous, giant, awe-inspiring country, and it's a truly amazing place, and I was humbled, to say the least.
Absolutely. You know, today I want to talk about our December Coues deer hunts here in Arizona are kicking off all across the state, and wanted to talk to you. I know you've spent a lot of time chasing Coues deer and hunting Coues deer, and we've shared some camps together, and December is usually one of your favorite times to get out and look. And
well, Jay, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm actually having withdrawals right now because I woke up early this morning and my bones and body were telling me that I should be somewhere sitting glassing, and I'm not, and so I'm almost a little down in the mouth today just because I feel I should be out glassing and I'm not.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the nice things, Cody, about these December Coues deer hunts, it's the last of the rifle Coues deer hunts. We offer hunts in October and November, and then the December hunts are the last ones. And it's often called the rut hunt, quote unquote, the rut hunt. And we will get into that here in a bit. But first I wanted to ask you, from my perspective, one of the nice things about these December hunts is the fact that they are the longest of all the Coues deer rifle seasons that we have. I believe it starts on December 11th and runs all the way to the end of December 31st. And so that ends up giving quite a bit of time for guys to spend out there chasing Coues deer. How much of a benefit do you think that long season is rather than, say, some of the 7-day hunt structures that they have?
Jay, I think it gives a guy just a ton of opportunity. I mean, for me, I'm married and I have 3 children, and so I've got a life, and I obviously run and own the Outdoorsmans and do what we do here, and we're busy. And so the thing that I like most about this time of year is for me, I love the weather and the cold, and I love that time of year. But that hunt affords you to where you can put in a solid 3, 4, 5 days and come take a break and go back. And I know we'll talk about the rut here in a little bit, but I think what that longer hunt does for you, it allows you to, there are just certain places that are going to rut at different times than others, and it gives a guy a chance to move around and kind of find spots that, maybe where the deer are more active than others. So I love it just because it gives you more options and time.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the rut hunt, it's been my experience that, in the central Arizona units, the 6As, the 22s, the 23s, even some of the upper ends of the 24, maybe you'll get a little bit of, rut activity before Christmas, but in general, most of the rut activity is from Christmas to New Year's. And I think, as you go further south as well, down into the southern Arizona units, it seems as though when I've been down there and the reports that I hear, you really don't see a ton of mature buck rutting activity maybe till the last 2 or 3 days of the season. Yeah. Can you weigh in a little bit on that? Like, what have you seen and witnessed?
First of all, everything that you just said pretty much, right to the T. It absolutely is the truth. I think what everybody has this notion that, it's a December rut hunt, and I think that is that for the most part is just not true. Now, I say that in the last 2 years that I've been in central units, I saw the heaviest and best rutting activity for me in the pocket that I was hunting in the first week of the hunt. Now,
really interesting.
Well, and let me back up and just tell you, if I was going to take this, 15-day hunt, 18-day hunt, whatever depending on the year, whatever it is, I would always bet on, and if I had to take a week and take it off from work, I will always take the week off between Christmas and New Year's, because you start to the chances of being in a rut hunt are far greater the farther you go into the hunt. And all I'm saying is that the particular pockets that I was hunting, I had more rutting activity. Now, and you can get into the definitions of rut and what you're seeing. I'm talking about actual, bucks chasing does, rutting and staying hard on does, and watching does come through a pass and keep watching that pass and have bucks, nose to the ground right on their tail. So, long story short, I think it's, again, I'll put all my time on that end of December versus the beginning of December, but I've had really good fortune of seeing good rut activity in certain pockets in the early part of the hunt.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think one of the most important things early on in the hunt is if we have a cold snap, kind of like what we're going to have this opening weekend, and say the first week of the hunt. I think when you have those colder temperatures, those deer tend to be on their feet a little more than normal. If it was 75 and bluebird, I think they limit their activity, because it's hot. Just like if you watch your dog out in the backyard, when it's cold, he's frisky and running around, and when it's hot, they go find a shade tree and they lay there. It's interesting to hear you say that you saw quite a bit of rutting activity early. I wonder how much of that is just one single doe that may be cycling early, or maybe it was, extra cold and the deer were just on their feet and, trying to get into the mood a little bit, so to speak.
Well, I think, Jay, what happens is again, why it's my favorite time of year is, the deer are more active just naturally that time of year anyway. If they're not in the rut, they're kind of getting into that pre-rut. They're starting to move around more. It's just my favorite time of year. I mean, there's just a lot of deer in obviously certain pockets, and they're just starting to move more. And I think by nature, you got a good sunrise behind you, and you start, seeing deer pop up, on the horizon, as the sun, makes its way onto the mountain, and you just start seeing deer more, move more often. And it's to me, it's in stark contrast to the August and September, time period and the October hunts.
Yeah, absolutely. Cody, you bring up something I wanted to just ask you a question on. So on these December hunts, tell me your strategy at first light. Where do you want to be positioned, and which side of the hill will you find yourself looking at first?
Bottom line is I always want the sunlit hills. You can talk about certain things or certain pockets and certain bucks that you're looking at, and yes, those things will dictate where we will be. But almost always, if I'm just out scouting, like if I was out this morning, I know exactly where I'd be sitting, and it would be with my back to the sun, and I would be looking at a very, large, area so that I can see the sun, start working its way down the mountain. And I literally bracket myself so that I'm literally following the sun as it goes down left to right, as it uncovers the mountain.
For those out there listening that might not have as much experience, Coues deer, you and I are alike in that at first light on cold mornings, I like to follow the sun line down, and a lot of times those bucks will stay bedded until that sun hits them. And sometimes it even takes them a little bit after the, depending on the temperature, the sun to hit them. So what I hear you saying, though, is you want to have the sun at your back, and you want to have visually as bright of a look as you possibly can, as much country as you can look at. And at that time of the hour, when you're first catching light, are you scanning, or are you going slow, or are you going scanning and going fast, or going slow?
I'm literally trying to follow the before, when it's first light, and when I say first light, it's that nautical time. It's that half hour before the actual sun rays start hitting the tips of the mountain. I always have my little pockets and little places that I'm looking at because I've either seen deer there before, or I know there's a buck that's living in that area. But I will generally almost always use that half hour to I'm almost kind of scouting out especially if I'm in a new spot. I'll use that time to kind of look and see, the places that I just look at and instinctually think, you know what, if I was a deer, that's where I'd be, or I like that, this is an easy look. But as soon as that sun tip just hits the very first tip of a mountain, I literally will start following as it uncovers more, land, if you will, or territory in sunlit. I will literally, pan back and forth. And to say slow, Jay, I don't know that I'm being extra slow. If I'm finding deer, I might slow down. But I always find, too, that a lot of these, bucks or even does for that matter, when that sun hits them, they may not stand up right away, but generally speaking, when they do stand, they might even, I've seen deer stand there for 20 or 30 minutes and not really even move very much. They're trying to soak up as much sun as they can possibly soak up, and get warm, so to speak. So I will kind of let what I'm finding dictate. If I'm finding a lot, I'll kind of keep moving and kind of, take an inventory, so to speak, because at that first light, if you're doing it right, those deer will stand out like sore thumbs and use that sun against them.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I want to point out too, while we're on it, is I've seen it also when you get some of those mornings in where you're in the teens or low 20s when it's extra cold. You would think that there'd be a lot of activity right off the bat.
They won't move.
Those deer are so thin-skinned. I've seen it where sometimes 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock becomes the magical time where, you can first hour and a half of light. This time of year it's getting light, around 7:30 or so, where you can, 7:15, 7:30, and sometimes it takes a good hour before the deer will even get up out of their bed. So I would encourage the listeners that don't be discouraged. Sometimes that first hour when it's extra crispy out there,
Jay,
they'll actually stay down.
If you remember right, I think you and I and Dar and Cody Goff and we had that when we were in the I know you're gonna laugh when I say this, the North Camp South Camp days. And there was some mornings there that those deer did not move until after 9 or almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah, and honestly, when they get into that pattern, I never would, but you could actually not even show up, to your point, till 9 o'clock.
Yep.
And probably see just as many deer. I mean, I can remember a couple of those mornings where I'd call over, "Hey Cody, you got anything?" "Nothing." "Dar, you got anything?" "Nothing." "John, you got anything?" "Nothing." And it's like, okay, that tells me that these deer are conserving their energy.
Exactly.
By laying down. And I actually think they can stay warmer by staying, bedded than up and moving around. Once the sun actually comes up and it's got some intensity to it, I think they feel like they can stand, and that their body, the square inches of their body, actually can soak up more heat by doing so. Very interesting stuff. Now, deer movement, I think we could talk for hours on deer movement, but I think one of the things to point out is that, don't disregard deer movement during the day. I think personally, I think when the moon is full, I think the deer tend to move more right during the middle of the day.
Agreed.
Than if it's a dark moon, like December 11th is the dark moon of December, and so I would bet that there's pretty good movement, the first couple hours and the last couple hours, but also I think on a full moon, I think right during the middle of the day, what I notice is that moon is pretty full and bright until a couple hours before the sun comes up, and then so those deer are up all night. Then they bed down and they lay till 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and then they get up between say 10 and 2. So I think that's important for as this hunt goes on. People need to be glassing as much as they can during the middle of the day as well.
Yeah, I think in quote unquote, let's just call it this, the rut and the pre-rut and into January, if there's ever a time to glass all day and stay hard at it, and I'm more apt to stay put than move, just because of that. The deer are in general, they're just more active during this time of year. So, I always, and again with relationship to the moon and whatnot, on the full moons, the 10 to 2 time, that's almost as good as the golden hour of when the sun's, lighting up the side of the hill for the first light in the morning.
Yeah, for sure. Cody, as the hunt progresses and we get more towards Christmas and more after Christmas, is there anything as far as from a tactical standpoint, first thing in the morning, that you do differently when you know that those deer are going to be those bucks are going to be actively pursuing those does? Does any strategy change? What are you doing different?
The only thing different, you do in those times is the thing that you got to be really careful at that time of year is if you see a buck and you see him rutting and he's actively moving and chasing, I'm just going to flat out tell anybody that's listening or cares to listen, my thought is the more time that you waste getting to him, the least chance that deer's going to be in the same spot.
I totally agree. I think it's very difficult. One of the positives of rutting and activity is those bucks are really moving across the hillsides, actively pursuing does, and they seem to be a lot more visible. But from a standpoint of trying to get in and position and get a shot at those bucks, a lot of times they're moving so much. Say they're 2 canyons up and you can see them up there rutting around real good. By the time you get up there, they could be 3 canyons down chasing that same doe. And, it's kind of a double-edged sword. We hunt Mexico and we try and hunt down there. The best rutting dates are usually between about the, 8th, 9th of January till about the 25th. And as further south you go, obviously it goes back even later into February. But one of the challenges is those bucks are moving so hard that a lot of times you can see them, but you can't get shots at them. So that, whereas hunting in October and November, they don't move very much at all. The hard part is they're not on their feet very much, and they become difficult to find. But if you do find them, they're dead. Exactly.
Well, no, I think the only, I guess the second part of that is that if you, like when we killed, when Cody shot his buck a couple years ago in 23, we knew we found those deer in the evening and they were rutting really good. But I'll just flat out tell you, if we had tried to get from where we were to where, where we actually saw the deer to make a shot, it wouldn't have happened. Those deer, by the time we, got to where we were going, they were already clear up on another face, and that stock would have been completely ruined. So what we did was we saw them the night before, and we actually planned the next morning of where the last point we saw them, and those deer at that point they hadn't moved 300 yards. So I just think that sometimes you gotta if you can kind of anticipate where you kind of think they're going to be in the morning as to where they were the night before, or where they were in the morning and where they're going to be that evening, that's the time to make those kind of big moves and to strategize that way. But I would just tell you that if you see a buck rutting and the time for what I want to call long range glassing, I think you got to be more in them. You got to be closer to them, and you got to be able to make a fairly quick move to get in position to shoot, and make a good stalk on them quick.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Cody, obviously the Outdoorsmans is in the business of selling optics, and optics as good as anybody that I know, and better than anybody I know, quite frankly. I had a question the other day. Someone wrote in on an email to me asking about the 1250s versus the 15 by 56 Swarovskis, both of which I own, and both of which are phenomenal glasses. And I tried to answer his question as best as possible. He wanted to know whether to use his 1250 ELs that he had purchased, or his buddy had a pair of 15 by 56 that he would allow him to use. And my answer to him was, he said he was a fairly new Coues deer hunter, and I said, I would probably go with the 1250s. In that your field of view is wider, and you're probably going to pick up a few more deer that maybe you would miss with a little bit narrower field of view in the 15s. It's always a constant dilemma for me having both pairs of those binoculars, and they're both phenomenal. In your mind, which binocular do you think is better?
It's funny, Jake, because Dar and I, we've had this conversation, and we have a lot of fun with it. And I will tell you that for somebody new, the Coues deer hunting, the glassing thing, everybody's always like, oh, I got to have 15s. And you know what? I'm probably the wrong person to ask all the time, because I get to use what I want when I want. But if I'm not out testing things and using different glass, then I'm not doing my job as a salesperson. So, but here's what I tell people, and to me it's a fairly simple kind of equation, but this is what it comes down to. In a 1250, you basically have a 300-foot field of view at 1,000 yards. Okay. On a 15, you have a field of view of about 234, or I think it's listed at 234 feet. So you're basically talking about almost a third less field of view.
Right.
So I would always tell you that where I'm hunting would dictate what I need most. And so if a guy's using 15s, I'm willing to bet that he has a set of 8s or 10s around his neck, so he can use his 8s and 10s when he's in the tighter spots and he needs the field of view, and then he can turn around and use the 15s when he needs the big look. The reverse side of that is that, a lot of people, the 15s are heavier, they're longer, they're big. I mean, they're just a bigger piece of glass. And I love the 1250 ELs, because when I go to leave the truck and I'm not using the Coues or my ATX or STX 95, and I'm getting away from the truck and I'm going to be in a canyon, I almost always opt for the 1250s, because I want that field of view. And I don't need to be I'm not looking as long and as I don't need that power. So there's about a 20% power difference between the 12s to the 15s. And so, again, I think you've heard me say this before, but, anymore it's kind of getting to be like having a golf, I need a caddy, because I'd like to look over and go, well, we're going to be in this canyon today, hand me the 12s. And,
yeah.
Or we're going to be a little bit longer range, hand me the 15s. And really that's kind of what it comes down to. And what I will tell you is that the 1250 ELs, if I had to just pick one, I'd pick the 1250 ELs. They're lighter, they're smaller.
Kind of the same way. Yeah.
They are absolutely a phenomenal piece of glass to look through.
I think to further that point, I think, the 12s in my mind are the best all-around binocular in my mind for quote unquote the Western hunter. You've got that wow factor.
Yep.
You've got the wide field of view. It's just, they're a little bit lighter than the 15s.
Well, and I think, and Jay, you can handhold them if you. I mean, it's not ideal, but if a guy has to handhold them, it's head and shoulders above the 15s in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, my hands have a little shake to them, and I cannot handhold 15s at all. And the 12s, I can handhold them a little bit. Certainly not as good as my 10 ELs, but the 12s are certainly a binocular that, it's hard for me. I switch them in and out between the 15s and the 12s. If I'm going where I think I'm going to be really picking things apart, I go with the 15s. If I'm up on a spot where I've got some open yellow grass in Coues deer country and really want to do a lot of panning, the 12s are my choice, and it's a great choice to have. You obviously carry a wide range of optics there at the Outdoorsmans. One thing we always talk about is tripods and why glassing off of a tripod is so important. I think until people come hunt Coues deer, they don't realize the importance of a tripod, because those deer a lot of times stand so motionless, and they can be standing, head on or just a slightly quartered angle. And if you're just panning and have a little bit of vibration in your hand, a lot of times you won't pick them out. I mean, how many times even off a tripod are you looking in your field of view and then they move their head and they've been standing there the whole time? And
Jay,
I think that shows.
How many times have you been with a client or somebody that's kind of new, and you've literally got a deer in an open, not quite, I mean, there's some brush, but an open setting, and all that deer does is stick his head down in the grass to eat on something, and the guy next to you will go, where'd he go? Where'd he go?
Yeah.
And you're like, and being seasoned, you're like, hey, just stay on it, don't lose it, stay right with him. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, he just put his head down. They see him pick his head up, and they're like, oh my God. I mean, people are amazed at how fast those deer disappear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, especially Coues deer. And one thing I will ask you is, you run into people obviously at the shows and all sorts of stuff, and a lot of them haven't hunted Coues deer, and I'm sure you get the question of, why do you like those little deer? What's your answer?
Quite simply, and Jay, I'm going to say this too because I just came off the strip. Hadn't tried to draw a mule deer tag in 23 years. I've now hunted mule deer successfully. I feel fortunate to do so, and I was humbled to just how big and giant those mule deer are, and how easy they move around that big country. And my hat's off to all the guys that's their passion and that's what they want to do. But I'm sorry, when I look at a Coues deer and I watch them moving through the country, there is just, I think they're the most beautiful, alert. I mean, I just think they're just different how they act. I love watching them, methodically move across a face. And I've ever since I started hunting them in the late 80s, I just can't get over hunting them. I think they're the most beautiful and funnest animal to hunt that I've come up with so far.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. And for me, you kind of forget about it on, hunting elk and hunting sheep and hunting mule deer and all these different animals, and then Coues deer season hits and you're out there glassing Coues and you're like, I feel like I'm at home. And, they're just an unbelievable animal. Cody, I know you're busy. How's your shopping season going? How the sales going down there at the Outdoorsmans?
You know what?
How's business?
I got to tell you, I think I'm humbled, to say the least. We have had a really good. We had a great summer. We had a great fall, and I am humbled, to say the least, at the, just the sheer loyalty of our customers. We've just had a really good, fall, and we're having a great winter. We're going right into the Christmas season very strong. Very pleased to end the year this way, and we've got shows coming up this year. We're going to be in Salt Lake, we're going to be at in Reno for the Wild Sheep Show. We will be in Vegas for the SCI show, and then again we'll be at Salt Lake City for the Western Hunter Conservation. I couldn't, as a business owner and partner, I could not be happier with the way things have been going this last year. It has been a fantastic run, and I guess it just my hat's off, my thanks, and our team just really appreciates the loyalty shown to our customers.
Well, and the reputation around too is that you can call down to the Outdoorsmans and you get people that are out in the field and that can relate to the person on the phone. And I think that's huge. And I think when people realize that they can trust you guys as hunters and that you use the equipment and you know it better than anybody, I think that's why you guys have done so well. I want to thank you for being on this morning. I know you've got customers to help this morning, and I just want to thank you for that. And it was fun talking Coues deer, and it's always a pleasure having you on.
Jay, I just, as always, thank you for the opportunity to get the word out. And I know you're a big Outdoorsman supporter, and you don't know how much that means to me and the team here at the shop. We can't thank you enough for the opportunity.
Absolutely, and I want to give you a chance to let the listeners know how they can reach you, both through the web and on the phone. So would you do that now, please?
Yeah, absolutely. The 1-800 number, it's 1-800-291-8065, or you can shop online at outdoorsmans.com. And if you have any questions or anything for us, we'll be more than happy to help you out. And we just appreciate it. Happy holidays to everybody. And Jay, again, thank you for the opportunity.
All right, buddy. God bless you, and I'll see you down the road. And thanks for being on.
Yep. Talk to you soon, bud. Thank you.